And on top of making bets on the free FanDuel Sportsbook app, you can also play daily fantasy and win some cash. So all you got to do is log on to FanDuel.com and check out the fantasy games available for the Saturday slate. Just set your lineup and you get a shot to win. It's as easy as that. And we're going to give you the inside track, the inside information, because joining me now is fantasy expert Jim Sonnes, and he's done the research, so you just don't have to. Jim's going to give us cash game and tournament players that we should get into our lineups. Jim, good morning. Who is on your list this week?
Yeah, it's a very interesting slate, Danny, because there aren't a lot of expensive running backs to pay for, which means we can spend it at quarterback in cash games, which gives me access to Deshaun Watson, and I very much want that because this is the most attractive game on this slate by a pretty significant margin. He is $8,600, and this is a spot where in Week 16 we want teams that are motivated, and the Texans are trying to win the AFC South, which means they will have motivation here. So Deshaun Watson, hard to pass up when you combine his rushing with his passing. For tournaments, I really like Jimmy Garoppolo. This Rams defense has been volatile. They performed really well, against the Cardinals, but against teams like the Cowboys and like the Ravens, they've crumbled. And this 49ers offense, when fully healthy, can be very good. So I think that the Garoppolo is pretty in play for tournaments, but again, even there, I'd like Deshaun Watson as well. And wide receiver in cash game, Brashad Perriman is very interesting. He is $7,400, and you look back to last week, and sure, he had just 6 targets in that game, and that's definitely not great. However, we know he's going to be on the field, and when you're on the field in this Bucs offense, good things tend to happen for wide receivers. $7,400. He had 3 touchdowns last week, and I think that when you add in production with good volume, it leads to additional volume in the future. That's why I like Brashad Perriman. For tournaments, though, I like Will Fuller quite a bit, tying him to Deshaun Watson. Came back with 7 targets last week. If we look at the games where both Will Fuller and Kenny Stills have been healthy, Fuller has 22% of the team's targets. He has 32% of the deep targets in those games as well, and he's facing the Bucs, a secondary we target with regularity. So I think that you could make an argument for Will Fuller in cash games, but for tournaments, he is really hard to pass up. Running back is tough. I will fully admit that. There aren't a lot of guys I desperately want to use, but the guy I think you could argue with the best workload here is actually Devin Singletary facing the Patriots. If we look at him since his role change, since he became the feature back in this offense, he is averaging 16.6 carries per game and 4.0 targets per game. That is awesome, and yeah, the matchup is tough, but volume is king in fantasy, and Singletary is getting the best volume among running backs in this slate, so I actually do like him for cash games despite facing the Patriots. Todd Gurley, $7,400, he's kind of only in play for tournaments here, but I think that when you look at this matchup, kind of like Edward mentioned, I could see the Rams covering in this game, and Gurley has been getting much more volume recently with Sean McVay kind of taking the leash off of him. So $7,400 for Todd Gurley, I think that that's not that bad. So a tricky slate at running back to be sure, but I think that Singletary's pretty safe, and Gurley could be a bit sneaky if people are totally off this Rams offense.
Great stuff, Jim, as always. You can get more of Jim's information on his podcast. It's called Heat Check, a fantasy podcast. It's available every Monday and Thursday on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.